It's Dorothy Guinan with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'm participating in Janet Fritz's monthly YouTube collaboration, Stretch the Sketch. In this series, we start with a 12 by 12 sketch and then we alter it. We either shrink it or we stretch it. And my plan is to stretch June's sketch into this double page 7 photo spread. So here's the sketch. It's a fun grid by Scrapbook Challenges, and there's tons of inspiration on YouTube and Instagram for this one because we are using the very same sketch as the Best of 30 Days of Sketches by Christie's Beautiful Life, which is another series. So below you're going to find links to stretch the sketch so you can hop along and find out how others are altering this sketch, but also you can check out YouTube and easily find the Best of 30 Days of Sketches. Tons of inspiration. Here's what I'm going to be using. I have a stash collection I created by mixing 6 by 6 papers from Echo Park Paper's New Day collection, along with some wood grain paper from Simple Stories and some cardstock. So basically it's my April 2022 Scrapbook and Cards Today sampler stretch. So if you know what the Scrapbook and Cards Today sampler is, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, here's the sketch. I want to have a look at it with you again. So basically, I'm going to keep the sketch as is on the left-hand page. I love that vertical title, and I love the vertical journaling, so I don't want to change that up. I'm going to stretch the grid to the right with a few more photos, and I'm going to add a focal point photo. And this is really clear in my head at this point, but what's not clear is how I'm going to embellish this grid. And you're going to see this really trips me up through the process. So now we're going to have a look at what's on my desk. Those 2 pieces of Basil Marshmallow cardstock, 12 by 12, are going to be my foundation page. I have the sketch handy, of course. I have a bunch of paper. For my photos, I haven't even selected them yet. This is a story about Chester's daily life. So I have one 5 by 7 photo, which is matted already. That's my focal point photo, but the rest I just have a handful and I'm going to have to select them. And I also have a bunch of embellishments from random different collections, basically anything with cats on it, hearts on it. I don't know what I'm doing for embellishing, so I just basically grabbed a handful of stuff and I'm going to go from there. Now at this point, I'm going to give you an idea how I'm setting up this page. You can see that I cut out 9 blocks of navy cardstock in advance. That's going to be my grid that spans across the 2 pages. And now what you see me doing is just trying to select photos that I plan to cut down. So I have them in various sizes here. These are just different photos of Chester doing his thing. Anyway, now I'm showing you those square dies. So I already used the largest one to cut out all of those navy blocks. And basically, square nesting dies are fantastic for grids because they cut out identical size squares each time. Now what I'm going to do is use those very same dies, but in a few different sizes here. I use 3 different square sizes, and I'll put measurements for what I'm doing on the screen. But what I'm doing here is I don't want each square to be identical. So the base of each square is going to be the same size, but what I layer on top of it's going to be a bit different. So I'm using 3 different sizes, and I'm cutting my photos out in 2 different sizes, and I cut the pattern paper out in 2 different sizes. So you can see I have a bunch of piles of squares around me, and I'm showing you that each one of these square photos I backed in 2 layers of scrap cardstock just so that when I place them on the page, they pop up a bit. And 2 of those larger blocks are going to be replaced with photos. So of the 9 blue blocks that I cut out, 2 of them I don't need. Now I'm just playing around with placement with all of this stuff. And this gets switched up throughout the process. When I'm having trouble embellishing my page, I end up with a lot of indecision. So here I go with the pattern papers, and they are all different. I'm keeping that one at the top there in that pale green kind of solid because at this point my plan is to add a subtitle up there. But again, that gets switched up throughout the process. So what I'm going to do right now is work on the left-hand page, which is basically following the sketch that you see in the top left-hand corner. So what I'm going to do at this point is cut a matte for the blocks in the grid with this wood grain paper. So all I did was place the blocks on that wood grain paper, take a pencil, marked where I had to cut it, and trimmed it down. I also cut down a narrow strip of that navy paper, so I'm going to add that to one side of the wood grain, and I did add a bit of ink along the edge of that wood grain paper. And the ink I used was Morning Mist by VersaFine Claire. So what I'm going to do is adhere that blocks, or the 2 rows of blocks, on this wood grain paper. I'm not going to adhere the pattern paper at this point, just the blocks, because the pattern paper, I'm basically going to be treating it like my embellishments. It's certainly going to have an impact with my embellishing, so I don't want to commit to adhering that right away. So I'm adhering my blocks down. I started at the top and then I continued at the bottom and then basically positioned the block in the middle. So I'm more or less eyeballing it, but I do have my T-square out. Once this is down, then I'm going to start working on the right-hand page, and then I'll come in and do the finishing touches, and I'll be embellishing and all of that later on. So once again, I took my blocks, I'm marking it with a pencil just to know where to cut this wood grain paper. I'm going to cut down 2 narrow strips of this navy paper, but one of them is for the wood grain paper, but the other one is for the far right of this layout. So you can see I'm adhering it behind that 12 by 12 white cardstock. It sticks out 3/8 of an inch, so it made my paper longer. Now I had to trim the entire block down, which measured 12 3/8 of an inch, so I trimmed it down to 12 inches, and now I'm adhering my border once again to the page, and that's where I will put the 3 blocks of paper. Again, I'm reserving the pattern paper for later on when I start embellishing. So that's all adhered to my page. My focal point photo is loose at this point because I will be embellishing in that area as well. I'm just trying to decide on the placement of my pattern paper. Once again, I'm using that very same VersaFine Claire Morning Mist ink to ink all of my blocks of paper. And what I do at this point is I'm going to be cutting hearts out of 3 of the papers. And I have to tell you that in my head, a lot of things are going in 3s. The pattern papers, 3 of the blocks are identical in size, 1 is smaller. When I'm cutting out hearts from these blocks, I'm cutting out hearts from 3 of the blocks and not the 4th one. The 4th one remains solid. And within those 3 blocks with the hearts cut from them, 2 of them are done in identical size and 1 of them is from a smaller square. The whole idea I'm trying to tell you here is that I'm trying to keep each one of these different. The block at the bottom, I don't know if you can tell on screen, but the heart was a little bit crooked, and you're going to see that one ends up getting switched up a little bit later on as well. I have the hearts handy. I'm thinking I may fill in those hearts, maybe even pop them up on foam adhesive in those negative places from the hearts, but I'm not sure at this point. Really, I don't know what I'm doing, but what I do know is I really love that large title over on the left. So I'm showing you, I cut out most of my title already in advance with my Big Shot with 2 different die sets. The larger ones there are called large letters from Stampin' Up, and they measure about 2 inches in height. I absolutely love them. And the other smaller set there with the word boy and Chester, that's a collection from Sizzix, and I will put them in the description box below. Each one of those letters I created foam alphas with them by backing cardstock with foam adhesive, and I'm doing it for you right now. I'm cutting out some parentheses. So basically what I did was I cut myself a piece of cardstock the size of the die that I want to cut out. I backed it with some foam adhesive from the scrapbook.com, and now I'm running the cardstock that has foam adhesive behind it through the Big Shot with my die. So what I created there were 2 parentheses because I wanted to kind of stretch that title a little bit longer so that it really took up the entire length of the page. And I did the same thing with other dies for the word boy and Chester. So at this point, I'm thinking I want 2 subtitles. Up there by the word boy, I want it to be our boy. So once again, I am creating adhesive alphas, but this time they are going to be flat. So I'm backing this floral paper with adhesive, and it's a tape sheet called tape sheet basically by Be Creative. So I'm backing that floral paper with that adhesive. Once again, I'm going to run it through my Big Shot, and what's going to come out are adhesive letters. I absolutely love them. They are super cute, floral. Later on, these get dropped. This is part of my embellishing fiasco throughout this process. So now I'm just showing you how I've cut out these alphas. So now I have them up on that green block, but you can see you cannot see them. So I'm trying to figure out what is the point, basically. One thing I do know is that I really do like this large title over there on the left. So that's what you see me adhering right now. And I start at the far right, then I go to the far left, and then I kind of fill the words in between. And that is a way of making sure you kind of start your title where you want and you end your title where you want. At this point, I'm playing around with the blocks, and I'm really not liking them. You can see that I have white hearts as well. I had cut those out because I thought I would be popping them up with foam adhesive with the printed paper on top of them, but I'm actually kind of liking the white hearts. And I also punched out a navy cat, and that was with a punch from Stampin' Up, and I actually like that. So I like that one block there with the white heart and the cat. I also feel at this point I'm lacking color. I'm finding it really dull. So on my desk was this 6x6 paper from that New Day collection in yellow. So I get out a die set that I often use. It's called Floral Frames, a really old one from Stampin' Up. And I'm cutting out a bunch of yellow flowers. And I also have this leaf punch from Stampin' Up, another old one that I use frequently. And I punch out a bunch of green leaves. Again, another 6x6 paper that was part of this collection. At this point, I'm thinking the word hour really isn't standing out. So I'm thinking, well, maybe if I back it in a strip of that yellow paper. So you saw me put that square die in there. I just wanted it the exact same length, and then I'll trim that down. So this is where the embellishing indecision kind of comes in. So at this point, I really know that block at the top, I just don't like it. So I put the word hour on top of it. Honestly, I still can't see it, but I'm going with it anyway, hoping that if I continue, maybe miraculously it will pop out and start looking good. But honestly, in my heart, I don't like it here. I start working on the other blocks. I end up really liking that block with the punched out cat and the white heart. I thought of putting white hearts in the other blue heart areas, but I do kind of like how the navy looks. It almost creates a unique visual triangle with the two blue hearts and the navy cat. That's what I'm thinking. At this point, you saw I put the yellow strip behind the word hour. I didn't like that, so I removed that, decided to cut out half a large flower in it. Then I took the rest of that yellow paper, cut out another yellow flower because I didn't really have enough to do anything else. And then what you see off camera, actually I did it on camera, but off camera, I adhered the circles in the middle of each one of those flowers. So now I am trying once again to work with these clusters, hoping that the yellow is going to brighten things up and kind of unify things across the two pages. You can see the yellow once again is positioned in a visual triangle across the two pages. So I'm basically happy with the one with the cat in it. I end up putting the flower in the front, and when I adhere that later on, that one does get popped up on foam adhesive, and you can see I'm tucking in those leaves around as well. You may have noticed I also have a mat for my focal point photo, a second mat. That's wood grain paper there, so I adhered that. I'm happy with that. And I'm building a cluster, a larger cluster around the word Chester over there on the right hand side. So I have a couple flowers there. I have one of those punched out hearts that I'm going to incorporate in that cluster, and that's going to be kind of my largest cluster, I think, really. So it is going to basically hug the corner of that focal point photo, and I often do that when I create a focal point photo on the right hand side. I create kind of a big cluster that hugs the bottom right of the focal point, and that's what I'm doing right now. You can see I'm using my T-square to position my adhesive alphas, and I'm happy with that, and I'm coming in with the leaves at this point. Then what I'm going to do is I will start adhering the embellishment clusters over on the left-hand page. But at this point, I really don't like that block at the top, and I'm not sure why, but it's just not jiving with me. And it's possible that it's because I have 4 blocks, and I have 3 blocks that I like, 2 with the navy blue hearts in it, 1 with the cat in it. I'm happy with all of that. But the one on the top is just sticking out to me. So I started adhering everything. I adhere that flower down. I'm going to adhere my word hour, which doesn't show up. I adhere the word boy, and I just keep thinking, once it's down, maybe I will like it, but I end up not liking it at all. So this doesn't sit well with me. You can see I'm adhering it. I continued adhering it, and at that point I moved the flower underneath the word boy kind of down so that it's sticking out from behind that photo in the middle. Now I'm coming in, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with that block at the top there that I don't like. I think I need something by the word Chester, but I do know I need some journaling lines. So what I plan to do, and I'll do it off camera, is just use my T-square, draw some journaling lines there, and do my journaling on top of it. So you can see I have finished my layout. The few changes that I made were, I ended up removing that block at the top that was really bothering me, and I replaced it with a photo, and I'm much happier with it. I did switch up the photos a bit. I think I removed one, replaced it with another, and then of course added another in order to remove that block with the subtitle at the top. And also at the bottom on the right, I added a stamp by the word Chester, which says, "You're the cat's meow," and I'm super thrilled with that. So that is basically it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, struggles and all. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very much. Don't forget to check out all the other participants. Their links are in the description box below. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.